that was then where it came to light, like how do we actually do this? Because in Ekankar there's a way to get married in the Ek way. Then there's also, the Catholic way, but he was not practicing.
Sure.
So then we ultimately ended up just deciding to get married, not in a church, just a civil ceremony. That's how we got married, and it's what kind of just made sense for where we were both at the time. But it caused some friction with his mom because she's Catholic, but it wasn't, I would say neither of us knew the significance of getting married outside of the church or how to even go about doing that. There's procedures to do it, in accordance with the church, which I'm just sort of learning, now, to be honest. But neither he nor I really knew, and I did kind of look into the Catholic process at the time, and there was a Catholic church nearby us in Queens, and I'd gone there, and I was just like, okay, I was open-minded, I would say, to the process. But as I learned a little bit about it, I just remember learning that I would need to kind of commit to raising our kids, and future kids, Catholic. And I just wasn't able to do it because
it's a big step, isn't it?
Yeah, it just wasn't, resonating with my state, my conscience at the time. I wasn't able to pre-commit to something that I wasn't practicing. My husband wasn't practicing. It just didn't feel authentic to me, and I wasn't able to just stand and profess that without it being real.
Yeah.
So we,
that's a good thing.
We went along with the wedding in 2017. That was a civil ceremony, not religious, and we got married and moved to Maryland subsequently. And then everything started to change once we had our first kid and with all the subsequent kids. So in these last few years, and that's why it was interesting, because Emike, our eldest, was born in 2018, and so she's now 4.5, and we actually just baptized all 3 of them in February of this year here at St. Joseph's. So that was another major milestone that has actually solidified my own decision to join the Catholic Church, and I'm now in the RCIA process with the church. But it was really having kids, ironically the same kids that I wasn't able to use to pre-commit to the faith, but having them, and my husband and I's many conversations about how we wanted to raise them, how we're going to instill values in them, what sort of values, what sort of structure, and really just almost like getting to that spot of this is how we want to do it, from really grappling it out, like, looking at the way the world is doing things, looking at how there's all sorts of like social types of controversies going on around how to raise kids, the schooling system, just the environment in general. There's a lot of things going on where it just forces you to kind of think a lot about these things. And our eldest is on the verge of entering into the school age, into the kindergarten age, the system, and so a lot of this was just coming more and more to a head, like, what are we going to do here? We've got this little bit of time, and then they go into the world basically, and it just feels very like there's a ticking clock, like how you've got to sort something out and get some sort of structure in place. And so that was really the process, the grappling of that out, and just how we're going to do this, forcing me to look into Ekankar, look, what is the structure there, how would you raise kids there, obviously I was raised in it, but I feel like my mindset and my parents are different, and the things that my husband and I wanted, and the way we would kind of look at things may have been different to how they were looking at them. I'm obviously not sure about that, but just it forced the analysis basically of faith, and more so in terms of like the practical application of faith into morals and structure and guidance, that you are the ones as parents that have that obligation to put something in place for your kids, and if you don't do it, the world is going to do it, and
they're going to fill in the gap,
be in line with whatever that is. So that was the process that started everything, and I was debating, okay, there's a not like a baptism, but another type of process in Eckankar for kids. I was like, okay, well, should I do this baptism and then do the other one? And then I was like, I don't want to confuse the kids. And I was like, okay, well, I'll keep my Eckankar, and then I will do my best to raise them, with the church. But I knew I wanted the value system in the church, the structure. And we had been coming to church more and more regularly since 2020. So it was just this kind of, I'm coming more and more to church. And that was almost forcing me to grapple more with the teachings, because I'm professing things in the church service. And I was like, okay, well, saying the Nicene Creed, and it's like, okay, well, I'm saying these words, but what do they mean? It was just starting all the questioning for myself, because I didn't want to get into that inconsistent space again where I'm like saying things that I don't really believe in. But the only way I could really figure that out is by figuring out what the beliefs are actually about. So, but I just knew very clearly, or my husband and I had decided last year that we were going to go ahead and baptize the kids. And I knew I wanted to do that. It was not an influence coming from anyone but us. And I knew that would mean teaching them certain things. And so I'd committed to that. We came to the formation for parents, for that, for the baptism prep. And that was pretty much, I think, the turning point. That once I kind of decided that I wanted this for the kids, because you want the best for your kids. And so it had almost convinced me in an indirect way that I'm saying that this is the best thing, because it's what I want for my kids. So we did that in February, and it was just very dramatic for me, that baptism, and I invited my parents, and they came, which was awesome. And then I think my dad at one point was like, what's going on? Like, he thought maybe we were being influenced to go ahead and do this by maybe my husband's mom, or where this was coming from. And I was like, no, we just wanted to do it ourselves. And my husband had gone to church like prior to the ceremony. He was surprised, like, oh, I didn't know he was going back to church. But my husband has all, we've all been coming to church together as a family, more and more and more. And so we've been on this parallel spiritual paths, but he's coming at it from reconnecting back, and I'm like connecting newly into the Catholic Church. But it was just this movement in our family that's just been building and building and building. And then at the baptism on February, I just felt like I need to be baptized. Like, I just had this feeling and this say, I think I told my husband, like, I want to go wherever you guys are going. Like, it's like they're all baptized, and even my parents are, but I'm not. So it was like in that room, and we had some of my husband's family members come from Jersey as well. Everyone in there was baptized, and I was not. And it was just hitting me like, wow, like it just was a very strong sensation. I was having like, I need to be baptized, excuse me. So within 2 weeks of that, I came to the church and just asked, or I emailed Violet, who was very helpful, but she mentioned that Pedro is the director of evangelization and he handles the RCIA process. So I met with him, and that's been it. So I haven't looked back.
What a story, my goodness. You have some really unique parts to your journey, and some very different ones, but the common thread here is that, well, speaking of thread, I do get the sense that you were pulled along.
Yeah.
Almost like there was a thread, and the fact that your husband's coming back and you're coming towards it, sort of new, really is a common thing, because you both can enjoy that joy together. He's reconnecting with the joy that you're just discovering. Right. I think that's a wonderful way to share in this together. I'm struck by the fact that you said you wanted what was best for your kids. And I hear that a lot, and I hear that from parents. And yet there are some parents who might say that and actually do that, but still stay back. And, it's sort of curious to me how they wouldn't want the best for themselves. you did. You wanted the best. And it was almost like, hey, if I want the best for my kids, why don't I want it for me? Right? I mean, is that sort of how it felt?
Exactly. It makes sense. I mean, putting it or hearing it re-said like that, because that's exactly what it felt like. Because I was committed to doing the formation with them. So I wasn't trying to baptize them just to get it out of the way and say, okay, they're baptized and move on with my life. Like, I wanted to actually instill the values in them that come from the church teaching. Yeah. So it was a case of, okay, I want to do this and do this the best way I can, but then I need to know it. And so that was actually what, at first, when I came to meet with Pedro, I was thinking, okay, let me find out what is involved with getting baptized. Maybe I can still keep the EC teachings, to myself and just look into this. But it was that immersion in, like, okay, what is the church? Because I didn't really know, as an outsider, the Catholic faith is not obvious just from going to a liturgical mass. It's not
there's
clear.
More to it.
Right, how deep it goes and how it literally connects, but the apostolic church connecting all the way back to the beginning, from the apostles, Jesus, and the succession through Simon Peter the Pope, and that lineage. It was not obvious at all, or not apparent, I would say. And so it was this book that Pedro recommended to me, called The Light of Christ. An introduction to Catholicism. It literally was life-changing to me, and I just devoured the book. And he said, okay, try to read like the first chapter before our next meeting, but I just read the entire book, and I just found it so illuminating and just fascinating to really just dive deeply and see that the faith, how deep it is, and how intellectual it is, and how it's not a case of, okay, abandoning reason, abandoning intellect, and just saying, oh, just believe with no substance behind it, and just sort of saying nice words, but kind of being naive to the world. How it kind of seems to people outside the church, it's as if, okay, I'm just saying certain things, but I have to disregard everything I'm seeing with my eyes. Over here, it just felt like, oh, it's not that at all. And people have been grappling with how to kind of interpret the message from Jesus out of the scriptures, how to really apply it to practical living for 2,000 plus years, and the magisterium of the church. And it's not just what I found as well, because I'm grappling both between Eckankar and Catholicism, and Protestantism and Catholicism, and trying to understand, okay, well, why this versus that. And it just helped really put everything into a sense of structure, or something that I could turn over in my mind and say, okay, well, what about this? And there's innumerable texts you can look at for any one given question you have or topic. And it just felt like, oh wow, okay, so it's not a case of abandoning any questions I have and just blindly following and just saying words on Sunday. It's like there's just so much depth, and it was so satisfying to just feel like, okay, I can literally go there on any topic, any question, and there's volumes and volumes of information. And that's what did it for me. And I was just, oh wow. And I was just kind of faced with this, now that I know what I know, I just felt like I can't go back. It was,
I love that.
I love that.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. So, now that I know what I know, I can't go back. Or maybe you would even say, some other people might say, I can't ignore it.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's real. It's the real deal.
Right. Exactly.
My goodness, what a story. You have done so much good work to get where you are. Not everybody does this kind of thinking and soul searching. I mean, I hope that's an encouragement to people that, if you do have these questions, don't just, run off and say, oh, well, forget it, I'm not going to ask them. Dig. Ask. Yeah. The catechism, I've been enjoying the catechism more, and it's the real deal.
Yeah.
It's the real deal.
Exactly. I'm actually listening to that now with Father Mike Schmidt, the Catechism in a Year. That's super helpful, and I did buy a catechism as well, and just to have, and there's so many, I don't know, resources that are available, but that is really saying, okay, this is the church and what we believe, but covering every topic you can think of. And then the saints too, that's another area that I started to look into, and just realizing that there are people. So right now I'm reading the Introduction to the Devout Life by Saint Francis de Sales. Mm-hmm. And so that is, I've literally just started it, but just realizing that he was alive in 1500 and something, and I'm like, wow, this is someone that was 500 years ago, like trying to grapple with how to live and how to be devoted to the church and to Jesus and make it a reality in practical life. Yeah, like this is intense. Like there's so many resources that are available. There's something for everyone, and that can suit your the way you are, your personality, how you like to think about life. Like there's probably multiple saints or people today, and like the Father Mike Schmitz, there's YouTube, all sorts of content that is there to help you kind of solidify your faith, and just what you said earlier, not feel afraid to ask certain questions. Yeah. And that you just have to kind of just believe and just keep your mouth shut and just move on with it. It's like, which is how I thought it was. And honestly, that it's like, okay, this church is there, and you just go to mass, and I just didn't realize even the depth of the prayer life. It seemed like, okay, the liturgy or the the liturgical mass is it, but that's just one. It's the major way of praying as a community, but just understanding like, okay, there's so many different types and ways to pray, and
there's so much
it's
more.
Just so much more. So
it's a
so
rich
exciting.
place. I came from a Protestant background, and there was a wonderful truth and scripture and Bible and beautiful life there. What I'm finding is in the Catholic Church is a word that is used in the Catechism a lot, and the fullness of what Christ has to offer us, and it's richness. I mean, and both of those words are really powerful to me too. Wow, well, you've shared an incredible story here with us, and I'm so happy that you were able to come and do that. I feel like I want to put this on slow motion and go back and listen to you again. So I hope all of our listeners will do the same thing, because there is so much in what Funke says that you want to listen to. The questioning, the reading, the asking, and the stopping, and then the restarting. All of that is important, and it's okay. It's okay. God is it's obviously brought you to us, and we're very thankful. You and that beautiful family of yours.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been awesome to just have this opportunity to share, and I feel like I'm at the start of my journey, but I'm very much looking forward to Easter of 2024. It couldn't come any sooner for me, basically, so I'm going to be getting baptized, confirmed, and first communion and everything, so...
Well, we'll be there.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So very excited for that.
Thank you for being here, and join us for the next journey. We are not sure who is going to be.